I thought you said Tammy coming on.
Yeah.
What? Oh,
10-4. Live from Exchange.
In Detroit, Michigan. We're in Corktown, right?
Can you let me finish?
No.
Just be quiet. Anyway, we're in Corktown. I'm Adolph Mongo, Detroit in black and white. Allan Lengel, Headline Detroit, co-founder, Washington Post, Detroit News, Eagle American. And Vanessa Moss, well, we know what she is, a shit starter. She talked plenty stuff. But anyway.
What's my introduction?
You're an attorney.
Give me my props.
You're an attorney.
And what else?
You know attorneys. You know what Shakespeare said about attorneys.
No, I don't.
Anyway, political consultant Vanessa Moss, and welcome. And let's go to we here in Corktown, Exchange.
Exchange at the corner here. Maybe I'm gonna play this little. I was thinking when you hear Michigan and Trump, you always hear, "Hey everybody, there's still plenty of Tiger tickets at the corner of Michigan and Trumbull." It's Ernie Harwell, and we happen to have.
He's still alive.
We have a little. He's passed away, but we have a little Ernie Harwell thing here.
Against the right-hander, the outfield is straight up and deep on Fielder. He is the DH today. Swing. There's a drive to left. That one is long gone.
Okay.
All right.
Well, let's get ready. Vanessa, outrage of the week.
Oh, okay. So I have two outrages. My first outrage has something to do with. What the heck is that?
Oh, that's me. Okay, go
Turn
ahead.
your phone off. And it's still talking. That's my outrage.
That's my
outrage right
glitches.
now. That's my outrage right now. That's my outrage right now.
I can't. Okay.
All right.
Let's go.
Hilarious.
Go ahead.
You got to put your phone on silent.
So what's your outrage?
Silence.
Okay. I have two. One is in Massachusetts, there's a 12-year-old boy who claimed that he was removed from his classroom because he had on a shirt that said that there are only two genders. I'm outraged because, listen, he has a First Amendment right to wear whatever shirt he wants to wear. Now, the consequences behind that is a whole different story. But the fact of the matter is, though, that is his belief, and he's okay to wear it. It's fine, as far as I'm concerned. He can wear that. That's like me wearing a Black Lives Matter shirt. If somebody had a problem with it, that's your problem. That's one of my outrage. My second outrage has to do with a gentleman that was killed on the New York subway with a chokehold. I'm outraged that there were people standing there and didn't try to help this guy. You had somebody with their phone filming this. I am outraged that nobody felt compelled to help this man. You stood there and you watched this man actually get murdered. That is outrageous.
Okay, Allan.
My outrage has to do with the child labor of McDonald's. Joe, you want to roll that? We've got a little video on this. McDonald one.
Cannot make this stuff up. Check out this headline right here. U.S. investigation uncovers two 10-year-olds working at Kentucky McDonald's. Investigation also found 3 franchises in 4 states, employed a total of 305 children working more than legally permitted hours. I mean, this really is a damn shame. Thank you, Michael from The Guardian again. Hey. Toddlers know the golden arches, but you ain't supposed to put them to work like that, McDonald's. Shame on you.
All right, there you have it.
Well, they was working.
You outraged. Your parents didn't put you to work as a kid.
Yeah, they put me to work as a kid. I'd say yesterday. I said my
they
father.
Work on farms. Listen,
my father had a bar.
That's right. You wash dishes.
I didn't wash dishes.
You're gonna give a 10-year-old a thing of grease.
Yeah.
Yeah, you be suing them. You be defending
But listen, no, I know someone who had their 5-year-old ironing their own clothes. Now, I personally, I thought it was outrageous, but
that's outrageous.
A 10-year-old working in Kentucky, what you outraged at McDonald's? Are you outraged that the parents allow their kids to go to work and be employed?
I'm just outraged that they have to live in Kentucky. That's why I'm outraged.
Amen.
Anyway,
amen. I'll also say another outrageous real quickly.
Go ahead.
The whole Clarence Thomas thing. And it's not only Clarence Thomas now. We're seeing Justice Roberts' wife made millions of dollars from her law firm in cases I think that have gone before the Supreme Court and stuff. I think that court needs a thorough scrubbing. It needs a thorough investigation, and they need to adopt the law, the guidelines that all the other federal judges have. I mean, it's not that complicated. It's like you have conflicts of interest. Look, Clarence Thomas is one big conflict of interest. They're not recusing. There should be someone who has some oversight, who has some input at least to say, or get a justice who has some balls to say this is not proper. I mean, to go to Clarence Thomas and say, you can't rule on this. Your wife is involved in this whole electoral thing, the whole election denying stuff. You can't be ruling on all these cases. And then you've got a guy, this billionaire, guy who is buying Clarence Thomas. In fact, maybe we have a little.
Let me ask you this: Is this the same guy who sent Clarence Thomas's great nephew to a boarding school?
He
paid his tuition.
Well, here's a.
Hey, you can pay my rent.
From the White House Correspondents' dinner, we've got Roy Wood Jr. We've got
a billionaire named Harlan Crow. He's flying Clarence Thomas all over the world on unreported trips, like an Instagram model, taking Clarence to the Maldives and the beaches and all. Paid for his mama's house, this billionaire. Paid for Clarence Thomas' mama's house. I gotta give it up to billionaires. Billionaires, boy, y'all are relentless. Y'all always come up with something new to buy. Like, just when you think of everything you could buy on Earth, a billionaire will come up with a new thing. Y'all buy space rockets, you bought Twitter. This man bought a Supreme Court justice. Do you understand how rich you have to be to buy a black one on top of that? There's only 2 in stock. And Harlan Crow owns half the inventory.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's outrageous what's going on in the court. It's supposed to be our most respectable, the Supreme. They call them the Supremes.
Yeah, right. The court is full of shit.
And you know what? When you take a poll across the United States, they do not hold the United States Supreme Court in high regard.
No,
I think that they're polling at like 30%. So, I mean, the American people think that the Supreme Court is full of it.
Well, they rank below justice of the peace.
But you know what? That, and I know you get ready to do your outrage, but that brings me to something that we've said before, is that when you're talking about politics is really local, because that's what really impacts us every single day. What they're doing in D.C., a lot of them passing the buck, like my congressman.
I would like your Congress. That's my outrage. Now, here's my outrage. Highland Park is about to go under old $30 million, water, bankruptcy, and they're represented by who? Shree. Him and Debbie Stabenow, and they got a thing going. Who can name the federal courthouse? Stabenow says she want to name it after Rosa Parks. Shree Canada said, name it after John Conyers. Fuck, what you gonna do with Highland Park? Nobody gives a damn about whether they name that building Rosa Parks or John Conyers. That should be icing on the cake. He's been in office, and this is what he's gonna be doing, naming buildings and shit.
But listen, politics are local, so the state took over the water department in Highland Park. Highland Park had their own water system. And for years, they've been saying, listen, you guys have billed me wrong. This is not correct. So now they're at the point where they're talking about filing bankruptcy. They're talking about it. But listen, I'm not paying. Listen, I would be in a position that I'm not paying for something that's not right. You give me a bill and I tell you this bill is not correct. I should be able to fight that.
Well, they should, but Highland Park shouldn't even be a city.
Highland Park
I disagree.
I drive through Highland Park.
It was created by Ford Motor Company, by Chrysler. They didn't want to pay taxes in the city of Detroit. And so, fine, you created a nice community. Had great schools, a community college.
Beautiful
and then
homes.
You closed down Ford. Then Chrysler headquarters left. Especially when the Chrysler headquarters left, Dennis Archer came in and said, "Oh, you owe us all this money." They didn't even cut a deal where they let Chrysler get out of that deal. They should have said, "Okay, you can leave, go to Auburn Hills, but you need to pay off some of these bills because we're not going to be able to get that money." So that's the problem. That goes back to Lindsay Porter and Bob Blackwell and all those others.
Well, let me say this. They filed bankruptcy. Just like Detroit filed bankruptcy, you see all of this construction going on. Bankruptcy is actually a reset. It's a reset. It's a reset button. I don't know if you guys have been in Highland Park lately. I
go by at least 3-4 times a week.
They're building some monstrosity off of the Lodge Freeway and Davidson back over there. I don't know what it is. And then if you go up on the back streets, there's a lot of construction going on, which means there's some jobs that's coming into Highland Park. So,
we don't know that the Highland Parkers.
They don't have a school system. All I'm saying, my outrage is we got two fucking politicians. One's a senator, one's a congressman, and they arguing over who's going to name a federal courthouse after somebody. That down. And here you got a city that's bleeding to death.
Right.
God, what are you going to do?
No, I was going to say, I drive through Highland Park and I see it's like the forgotten city. I mean, you see Highland Appliance is still up there. It's got to be 30 years at least since it's been abandoned. 25
years ago, a tornado hit Highland Park.
Yeah.
And fortunately, nobody got killed. But that was Mother Nature gave Highland Park a way out. They didn't even get the shit fixed. FEMA didn't give them any money. And you know who represented them there? John Conyers. Didn't do shit for Highland Park. Yeah. It went from here to there.
Highland Park does not get a lot of great representation.
No, it don't. And so here we got people arguing about the naming rights like it's a fucking baseball game or something at a stadium. So that's my outrage of the week.
You know what I noticed?
What?
I noticed that you and Allan, you guys sure use a lot of profanity since we're on a podcast as opposed to being on the radio.
Because I used to have to hold it in. Anyway, we're gonna take a.
We're gonna do some commercials, Joe, and then we're gonna.
Then we come back.
We got Scott Burnstein waiting in the wings here. So.
I'm Wayne County Treasurer Eric Sabri. There are payment plans available to help save your property. Visit our website at treasurer.waynecounty.com or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com for further information. We're here to help.
Homeownership opportunities are rising in the city of Detroit, and there's a house out there that's right for you and your family. You don't even have to worry about credit or getting a loan. You can win a house for as little as $1,000 and pay for the renovation cost as you go. It all starts at buildingdetroit.org and the Detroit Land Bank Authority. Our auction and Own It Now programs offer a variety of houses in neighborhoods all over the city of Detroit. These homes are in desperate need of repair and new ownership. You can begin by going to our interactive map and detailed property listings to find the right fit for you. It won't be easy, and renovation costs are not cheap, but our compliance team is there every step of the way. We will help you track your progress and connect you with local discounts to save you more money. We have already sold more than 15,000 homes in the city of Detroit, and our inventory is shrinking fast, so you don't want to miss out on this wonderful opportunity. Start your home buying journey today by visiting buildingdetroit.org.
Okay, welcome back to Detroit in Black and White. I'm Adolph Mongo, Vanessa Moss, Allan Lengel. Vanessa, how do people
you know what? We're going to ask that us. If you are watching Detroit in Black and White on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Deadline Detroit. But if you're watching us today, what we'd like for you to do is not only share, we also would like for you to subscribe to Detroit in Black and White. Also, we have a email address, which is detroitinblackandwhite313@gmail.com. If you want to do your outrage, you can tape your outrage, send it to our email, and guess what? You will appear on Detroit in Black and White. The other thing is we are here at McShane's. We'll be here next week, so if you want to come down and be live and participate, we welcome you to come down here to McShane's, which is on Michigan, on the corner of Michigan Avenue and Trumbull in Corktown.
Because last week we had Jim Nardoni from Trenton. He did his outrage. He's always outraged. Right. former police chief at Trenton Downriver. Thanks, Jim.
He's a stuff starter too. He's a stuff starter.
Yeah, he does. But anyway, Lengel.
All right, we're going to bring in our next guest, Scott Burnstein. Let's bring him into the studio here. All right, Scott, welcome. Can you hear us?
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
And Scott, good morning.
Scott is we consider a mob expert, particularly in the city of Detroit, for the Detroit area. He's also an author of how many books, Scott? Is it 5?
6 books.
6 books. He's also done, he's made films, including, and we're going to talk about this, he helped produce the documentary on White Boy Rick called White Boy, which is on Netflix. And so, Scott, I guess the first question I want to ask you is when people think about the mob, they obviously think of the traditional mafia, the Italian mob. What's going on? Is there any mob left? And if so, what?
In Detroit, there's a very active Italian mafia that hasn't gone away. The media stopped covering it for whatever reason. I'm really the lone wolf that pays attention and tries to shine as much of a spotlight as I can. But yeah, I mean, it's a group
who is it?
100 years and has a lot of white collar ties, a lot of roots in the community that were planted back, in the 30s and 40s, 20s, 30s and 40s, and they thrive in the shadows.
And who, when we talk about who are they? I mean, are they the offspring of, like, we always think of? I mean, the highest profile guys have always been the Vito and the Giacalone brothers, even though they weren't the top guys. Who's there now? Who do we?
The FBI believes that the boss of the organization here, known as the Tocco Zerilli crime family, in 2023, they believe the boss is Jackie the Kid Giacalone, who is longtime racketeer, multiple-time convicted felon, the son of the infamous Billy Jack Giacalone, who was most likely the person that killed Jimmy Hoffa.
And when we talk about the mob now, what kind of business are they in? What are they doing out there? Is there still gambling? Is there still?
Yeah, it's the same. The staples: gambling, loan sharking, extortion, drugs, labor racketeering, a lot of white collar stuff. I mean, I don't want to get into names, but there are a ton of very high profile business names in Detroit that you might not know, but are incredibly mobbed up.
Let me ask a question. Well, you said you didn't want to name names. Are you wearing a bulletproof vest? Because you writing all these books and stuff. Right. Then do you ever get spooked?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing this for 15, 16 years now. Yeah, you got to be careful. You know, you do your due diligence, but you know, for the most part, I don't feel threatened. There have been a small handful of times over the last 15 years where I've gotten a little spooked. It's not, honestly, it hasn't been my being spooked hasn't been related to the Italian mafia. It's been related to other groups that
Other groups.
more dangerous.
All right. You know, we have a video here. We have a couple videos. I'm gonna play one.
They were easily one of the most successful mafia families left in America until today.
They're saying you guys are big players in the mafia. Is that true?
Your father is.
For the next several years, Hoffa worked behind the scenes to regain his presidency, but by 1975, the battle between him and Fitzsimmons was out in the open and was about to get violent.
It's the spring of 1975, and Hoffa and his former protege, Frank Fitzsimmons, are embroiled in a bitter power struggle for the Teamsters presidency. Mr. Fitzsimmons, at this point, is firmly ensconced in Hoffa's old-time presidency seat, and members of the mafia that had once helped Hoffa attain the presidency are pretty content.
In 1979, 3 headless bodies were found in a van near downtown Detroit, a crime which shocked the country. It was the work of the Detroit Mafia's Black Hand of Death.
The long and the short of it was there were 3 people who got murdered at the Democratic Club, and that was not a political organization over there off of Woodward. And the notoriety of the case came because their heads were cut off and the bodies were found. And of course, if it had just been 3 dead people, they'd have said, oh, there's 3 dead people. But when you cut somebody's heads off, then of course it became the crime of the century.
They decapitated 3 people and left their bodies. I think it was at a location called the Democratic Club.
Now, Scott, when we see stuff like that, I guess one of the questions we're always curious is, with the traditional Italian mafia, was there a relationship with some of the black gangsters in Detroit?
Well, you just saw that video. That video just said it. So yes.
Yeah. And what was the relationship? I mean, was it drugs or just, or how did they work that out?
You know, from, I would say, the 1930s till around the turn of the century, in the late 90s, the early 2000s, there was always a nexus point between the Italian mafia, the Tocco Zerilli crime family, and the black underworld in Detroit. It started with the numbers business, with guys like Monk Watson and Johnny Roxborough, who was Joe Lewis's manager and trainer, Eddie, Fast Eddie Wingate, black numbers runners that worked very closely with the Italians. And then it evolved into a lot of drugs and murder and enforcement. And by the 1970s, you had a whole kind of satellite faction of the Giacalone crew, known as Murder Row, and that was their African-American enforcement drug gambling group, led by a very notorious African-American crime lord known as Big Frank Nitti, Frank Usher, known as Nitti. And Nitti was actually groomed by the Giacalones. He wasn't groomed by older black gangsters or racketeers. As a young boy, in preteen and then into his teen years, he was working for the Giacalone brothers out of at that time, their social club was called the Lusad, the Lower Upper East Side Social Club of Detroit. Uh-huh. And Frank Usher was doing errands for them. There's a picture from the Detroit Free Press from the early 60s when Usher, I believe, is like 15 or 16, with him carrying the Giacalone's briefcases into a court hearing. And then by the 1970s, when he was an adult, he was given control over an entire crew that he named Murder Row. And they were responsible for that video that you just saw, the very, very notorious 1979 Michigan Democratic Social Club massacre.
Now, go ahead. Okay, I was going to ask real quick. I was going through some videos last night, and I saw that the Giacalones had a relationship with Frank Sinatra. Here, I'll play.
FBI agents also watched Sinatra's carouse with Detroit mobsters Anthony and Vito Giacalone. It was like clockwork, retired FBI agent Sam Ruffino tells author Scott Burnstein. A few times a year, we'd trail the Giacalones to the airport to pick up Sinatra. They'd spend the weekend together socializing before and after his shows. Almost every night, they'd shut the place down. And he didn't make any apologies for it. Sinatra didn't apologize for that. These were his friends. So what? The fact that they were known hoodlums and murderers, well, they got to throw that in, didn't matter to him. He didn't care. He was going to hang around with who he wanted to hang around with.
Now, what was your sense of Sinatra's relationship with the mob? I mean, the ex-mobster who's just talking there is really downplayed, and he said he had friends, but Sinatra wasn't part of the mob. Do you have any insights into that? Or,
let me just clean
and
something
the
up.
Detroit mob.
Yeah. Let me just clean something up real quick. I want to be very clear. Frank Usher was an intended victim of the Michigan Democratic Social Club massacre. He was charged with it and actually did prison time for it. But in reality, he was an intended victim, and the case got thrown out, and he eventually got out of prison. But I don't know if I had just said that Usher was responsible for the massacre. He was present and was an intended victim, but the three people that were murdered were his lieutenants. I just wanted to be clear.
Okay. So the Sinatra part.
Frank Sinatra was very close to the Giacalone brothers, who were the street bosses of the Detroit Mafia from the 1950s all the way into the 2000s. They were the face of the franchise, if you will. Anthony, Tony Jack Giacalone, Vito, Billy Jack Giacalone. They spent a lot of time with Frank Sinatra when Sinatra was in town. They'd go to the Roma Cafe was a place they liked to go to. They'd go to a really great little hole-in-the-wall Italian restaurant that's recently closed down in Southwest Detroit called Vince's. They like to go there, and then if they went out to the suburbs,
Giovanni's too.
Yeah, they go to Giovanni's, right? And then they would out in the suburbs. They like to go to Excalibur, which was on Northwestern Highway and about right by Franklin Road.
And why did Sinatra hang out? What was the benefit of him hanging out with these guys?
Frank Sinatra was friends with mafia members in every city in the United States. Whenever he went to a city to perform, he was hanging out with that city's mob family. I mean, I don't really want to try to get inside his head.
Anyway, you got a question. Go ahead,
Scott. You talked about the mafia still has a very big presence here in Michigan, Detroit, and you also talked about how you had the numbers game, you had the drugs. We're in 2020, 23, and like everything, it evolves. What kind of businesses are they involved in now? I mean, especially when we're doing everything on the internet and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I will say that if you keep track of these things, if you're a quote unquote mob watcher, you're talking about things evolving. You would think that a secret society was something that was created as a secret society would not have evolved to the point where they were doing stuff online or being on social media. But I guess human nature is human nature. And if you know where to look, if you're paying attention, again, the Detroit media around here, and I have my own theories of why, and we can get into that, why the Detroit media refuses to cover these guys. And it's not that difficult.
They don't have the manpower or the woman power.
I don't even think they're that innocent.
We're gonna take a break. We're gonna take a break.
We're gonna do some commercials, and we'll come right back. So hang in there.
Nearly 30,000 vacant lots all over the city of Detroit are for sale right now. That's right. Nearly 30,000 vacant lots are available now, starting at just $100. The lot next to your house or the lot down the street. Make it yours today in just a few simple clicks. Find out if it is available by visiting buildingdetroit.org. At the Detroit Land Bank Authority, side lots are just $100 and neighborhood lots sell for $250. You can apply and pay online today by visiting buildingdetroit.org. And if you don't see the lot you're looking for, call our offices. Our phone number is 313-974-6869. Again, that is 313-974-6869. We have already sold more than 21,000 vacant lots to Detroit homeowners. Make today your turn by visiting buildingdetroit.org.
Okay, we're back.
You were in the middle of answering my question.
So
how they've evolved. And
so there's I'll try to give some examples again without being too specific, but
right,
a lot of restaurants, a lot of bars, a lot of construction companies, a lot of landscaping companies, a lot of upper level white collar stuff that you wouldn't even, if you weren't paying attention, again, you wouldn't even know. I think one of the best examples of this, and again, this didn't get covered by the media, which is an indictment of the media, but in the last decade, you had a very, very, very prominent member of organized crime in Detroit. And again, I don't want to mention his name. He sold his insurance company for $50 million to Ascension Health, which is backed by the Archdiocese, the Catholic Church. And the media didn't touch it. And this guy, who is a suspected murderer, suspected racketeer, has been mentioned and referenced in dozens of racketeering cases across the country in the last 50 years. And it was a shady deal from what I can understand. And he was able to divest himself at the last second and slide in a family member to be able to collect that money. It never got covered.
And Scott, he was also regarded him as head of the Detroit mob too.
Well, right now he's considered the underboss, and he was a nephew to Jack Tocco, who was the longtime godfather. He was a nephew by marriage to Jack Tocco. Yeah, sorry.
So Scott, you said that you didn't imply. You said that the media hasn't covered it, and you suspect why. Can you tell us?
Yeah, so I think that these white collar businesses have a lot of money tied up in advertising dollars. And again, if I threw out these names, you would know all these names. And I just can speak from personal situations. I had a front page story that was about to go in a major news publication here that was all about the modern day state of the Mafia in Detroit. And I think it was within 48 hours of it's supposed to go to print, it got pulled. And I was told that one of these big businesses had gotten wind and had called the publication. They were spending like $250,000 to $500,000 on advertising revenue, and they threatened to pull their advertising revenue if they went with that story. And I got canned. My story got.
Scott, but it's also my impression is that there aren't a lot of reporters who have the backbone to really cover that type of stuff.
They don't have the knowledge.
But he just.
I mean, you're one of the few guys who still covers them at all. But we used to back in the day.
Right.
I did a profile on Vito Giacalone and his attorney. When I asked his attorney to talk to Vito to see if he wanted to talk, which I knew he wouldn't, but the paper asked me to. And when his attorney David Dumichel got back to me, he said he doesn't want to talk. And I said, "What did he say?" And he said he's not happy you're doing a profile on him.
Right.
And so back in the day, there were a lot of us who were covering, but now I don't think anyone
There's no information to do it, and I still scratch my head at why, because it would get you clicks.
Basically.
Right.
Well, I think it's not only. I mean, you can, suggest that it had been bought, but I think also there's just not the the wherewithal and also the desire to cover that's up to us.
Why? But why, Alan? Why? What?
Right. Just trying to make them seem like they're so
because you would
innocent
get
because
traffic,
it's part
you
of the
would get
media.
hits, you would get views. It's counterintuitive.
Well, Scott, they don't have any balls.
No, that's true. But Alan, what's your response to that? It's counterintuitive. You don't see what I'm saying? It gets clicks, it gets views. People.
Oh yeah.
Right.
People love. Look, The Sopranos is a reason why Sopranos was one of the most popular HBO shows because people are fascinated by the whole culture of organized crime.
Well, so is the media in Detroit opposed to getting traffic, opposed to getting clicks, opposed to getting views on their television reports?
Hey, Scott, why is it that America can love the mafia and they treat them like they're Robin Hood and everybody else, but yet the black gangsters, those are thugs, murderers, etc. You ain't seeing no Godfather type pictures about the black gangsters, but the Italians, everybody love them. You know, why is that?
I think that what you're saying is true to an extent, but I want to give a counter to that in 1 second. But the first thing I'll say is that yes, the Italian mafia has been incredibly romanticized by the media, by television, by film over the years, and it comes off benign to people that are consuming it when in fact it's very toxic. But it almost comes off benign in the way that it's fed to you. And then the alternative, or one of the alternate groups to the Italian mafia are black gangsters, and it's less digestible to white America. They view them very non-romanticized. They don't view them as benign. There's something I think that speaks to our inherent kind of racism in this country for the way that viewpoint is. But I will say that there's a major exception to that, and is the Black Mafia family, the BMF, which is a Detroit group that went national and became really the Walgreens of cocaine in the 2000s, where they had a satellite in almost every major city in America. But it was started in Detroit, and there's a show on Stars right now.
Right.
Hey, Scott, what Vanessa touched on a little bit about, I mean, we have gambling now is legal. We have it online. You can go on FanDuel on your phone. What is the mafia doing in terms of gambling? What are they offering?
Do you mind if I finish my point real quick?
I'm sorry?
Do you mind if I finish my point on the Black Mafia family?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yep. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying that I think that the exception to the rule, when you're talking about romanticizing and propping up and glorifying the Black Mafia family, I mean, maybe not in white people's culture, but in hip hop culture, there's nothing more romanticized in modern day hip hop culture than Black Mafia family. Demetrius Big Meech Flannery is practically like a deity.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, I what you're saying is true. Now, I have not watched this season of BMF, but you're absolutely correct. In our community, it's like, oh, we can't wait to watch. Just like we could wait to watch The Sopranos, you can't wait to watch that.
But I think
you're absolutely correct.
To Mr. Mongo's point, it's an exception to the rule. And for whatever reason, Black Mafia family has been able to. Their image is not intimidating. Their image is kind of like all love, diplomacy. We're all one big family. They weren't an incredibly violent group like other criminal organizations of the past. They weren't people. They were let's try to work it out verbally before we even think about getting violent. There wasn't there were no murders that were connected into their case. The historic Operation Motor City Mafia case that came down in 2005. There were no acts of violence in that case. So,
Scott, one last question, just and then we got to wrap this up.
Yeah.
But like I was saying, Vanessa, we were talking about with everything that's legal out there now these days. You know, you can gamble everywhere online, go to the casinos. What niche does the mafia provide that people still have a desire to deal with them?
Well, I want to say that I think it's a fallacy, and it's an easy fallacy to play into when it's not just people, it's the government. They're like, well, we'll legalize marijuana and we'll eliminate the black market. We'll legalize gambling and we'll eliminate the black market. Well, it's actually the complete opposite. The black market ramps up when those things get legalized. So there's still a lot of street gambling going on. A
lot of bookmaking, a lot of
bookmaking. A bunch of it's online. That you go to a traditional bookie, and that bookie will send you somewhere online that's being run, offshore somewhere. And then there was just a case that came down in Detroit regarding the Italian mafia in the last 5 years. A bookmaking case.
They fixed the NBA finals, didn't they? Did the mob fix the bribe the NBA referees?
In New York, that stuff, going on in New York. But I'm saying this was a case which was the traditional Italian group here, the Tocco-Zerilli crime family, that was running a book out of Luciano's Italian restaurant on 17 in Garfield. And they got indicted 5 years ago. The main guy, who was a lieutenant of the Toccos, had to go to prison for it. And then the last thing I'll say about how these guys are tied in to the government, into the judicial system. Just look at what's going on in Macomb County right now. Over the last 5 or 6 years, there's a huge corruption probe that's just taking down executive after executive after executive. If you dig into the case files and you dig into the police files, you'll see that there's organized crime.
Organized crime.
A lot of this.
I gotcha.
And then last thing I'll say is the guy that I was mentioning who sold his company for $50 million, he was also caught on a wiretap with Kwame Kilpatrick during the Kwame scandal. There was nothing on that wiretap being discussed illegal. There was nothing illegal being discussed, but the fact that you had this very, very high profile gangster in the mayor's office having a conversation that was recorded, I think that paints the picture that I think you need to see about how tied in this group is to the highest levels of government.
Absolutely. Well, Scott, thanks so much. We're gonna have you back because I know you got a ton more stories, and we didn't even get to the documentary about White Boy Rick, which you can see on Netflix, correct?
Yeah, check out White Boy Rick on Netflix. Check out my podcast, the Original Gangsters Podcast, anywhere you can get podcasts, as well as on YouTube. And then gangsterreport.com is my web magazine.
Okay, awesome. Thanks so much, Scott. We're going to have you back. There's tons more to talk about.
All right.
Thank you so much. Yep. Appreciate it. We're going to play some commercials.
I'm Wayne County Treasurer Eric Sabri. There are payment plans available to help save your property. Visit our website at treasurer.waynecounty.com or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com for further information. We're here to help.
Well done.
Nearly 30,000 vacant lots all over the city of Detroit are for sale right now. That's right, nearly 30,000 vacant lots are available now, starting at just $100. The lot next to your house or the lot down the street. Make it yours today in just a few simple clicks. Find out if it is available by visiting buildingdetroit.org. At the Detroit Land Bank Authority, side lots are just $100 and neighborhood lots sell for $250. You can apply and pay online today by visiting buildingdetroit.org. And if you don't see the lot you're looking for, call our offices. Our phone number is 313-974-6869. Again, that is 313-974-6869. We have already sold more than 21,000 vacant lots to Detroit homeowners. Make today your turn by visiting buildingdetroit.org.
Yeah, I guess.
We can ask.
I guess you have to figure that out.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, we are back.
You know what? Listen, between you and Scott, y'all like to talk. I know you covered the mob and shit, but I would like to really get into the relationship of the black gangsters
and Scott covers a lot of that.
But I'm talking about from the 50s and the 60s, when at the height of the number game,
right.
Mob only had they only had so much pull with some of these brothers, and also the lawyers that represented these folks. They are a story up on itself, you know. So anyway,
You're talking about, well, you know, there was a whole group more in the 70s and 80s. I mean, we had a group of Neil Fink, D.Day Lorraine, Dominic Cerise.
What about Allan Early?
So early we had I think Bob Morgan covered. There were a lot of really, and some of the top attorneys in Detroit.
They made a lot of money, you know, but then I wouldn't want to represent some of those folks. You find yourself in the trunk of a car.
You say that, but you never know.
Yeah,
I say that you never know.
Look, those attorneys.
I guess I represented some.
Right, you have.
Yeah.
But you know, you never know because I mean, like everybody, they have rights. We all have rights, and so you know, the prosecution has to prove their case, and you have a defense. So you know you never know. I mean, I used to say
they don't have
I
any
used to
rights.
no, I used to say that, but as I've grown older, if you will, I can't say that for certain that I'm not going to because you have to listen to the other side of the story. So you never know.
Well, anyway, we need to have them back. Our next guest.
All right, we've got Tammy Daniels
from
here.
Detroit Land Bank.
Hey,
how's everybody doing? I'm good. Can you guys hear me?
Wonderful.
Well, I hear there's a hot corner. We on the corner of Michigan and Trumbull where baseball used to be played. I guess they still play it. But I see you've been hitting home runs over at the Land Bank.
Balls
keep coming at you.
You know, I feel like I'm in the major leagues, Adolph.
You went black.
I'm
we
sorry.
can't see you.
I'm sorry.
There you go.
I'm over here multitasking on a Saturday. You know, I don't have a whole lot of time for all the things that I have to do, so I'm trying to do multiple things.
Your audio is bad.
Are we not hearing her?
I can hear you. You can't hear me? It needs to be louder.
AirPods in?
Yeah. What?
Yeah.
Can you take out your earpods?
But hold on.
Yeah. Okay. And if you could put it in the case. All right. So in the meantime, while we're waiting, but yeah, there's a lot more to explore here. Okay, Tammy.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Excellent.
Okay.
So what's happening at the Detroit Land Bank?
You know, we have some exciting activities coming up this summer, and I'll tell everybody to stay tuned. We are participating with the city's Motor City Makeover for the next couple of weeks. So we'll be out in the community helping to revitalize the neighborhoods by planting flowers, cleaning up lots. We'll be doing all of that with the city. Also, we have a career fair. So we have some positions open at the Land Bank for any of the listeners who are interested in maybe a career at the Land Bank. We're going to be doing a career fair in June. I would tell everybody to stay tuned for an exact date, but it's tentatively scheduled in June. So if you know somebody who's looking for a position, who wants to work in the community and do good work, we're going to be looking for people. And we love to see as many Detroiters come out and submit their application as possible. Also, the Land Bank had historically, we had a very successful program, our side lot neighborhood lot program. We would go into the community, we would do fairs, where we would sell vacant lots to residents on the spot. COVID had prevented us from doing that for a number of years, but this summer we're planning to do 2 large fairs in the city so that individuals can come out and purchase lots from the Land Bank. We have approximately 30,000 lots that are currently available for sale. And so we're going to go out into the community and try to sell as many lots on those days as possible. That's going to happen in June and July as well. And so I just tell everybody to stay tuned.
Tammy, any of those Any of those empty lots? Can people turn them into community gardens, or are you seeing any of that?
So we see a lot of that. So Detroit residents, individuals who live in the city and who own a home and it's occupied, they can buy those lots for $100. That's a side lot for $100. If you are someone who lives in the city, who occupies your home, and there's a lot, it's not maybe immediately adjacent to you, but it's within like 500 feet of your house, you can buy that lot for $252. There's a lot of background. I don't know can you guys hear me? I hear people talking.
We can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we find, Alan, is that a lot of residents are turning those lots into community gardens. We have a lot of other programs for neighborhood block clubs and our community partners where they can access the land and they turn them into community gardens. They turn them into play areas for kids. It's really quite amazing what people are doing when they get access to the land. And so we want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to access land and get it, for as inexpensively a price as possible. Those $100 prices and the $250 prices, those are only for Detroit residents. So you have to be a resident and the house has to be your primary residence in order for you to get that preferred pricing.
Tammy, I know I've asked you this before, but what's the cheapest somebody can get? Buy a house, rehab it, and get into it with that. What's the most outlay that or what's the range of outlay from bottom to top that you see people putting up money and then putting up for the rehab?
That's a great question, Alan. It really does depend. So you can get a house from the land bank as cheap as $1,000. So the actual purchase of the property is as low as $1,000. There was a story on MSNBC where they were talking about land banking in different countries in different cities, and they were featuring a Detroit purchaser, a teacher who had rehabbed her land bank house, and she spent, I think it was $13,000, but she was able to do that because it was a lot of, she did a lot of rehab herself. She reached out to her friends and family, and she accessed the resources that she knew of, and so she made it a much more cost-effective effort. And the rehab was phenomenal. What she did was phenomenal. And I think it was $13,000 in cash that she spent. But she had friends, family. She accessed her, I think, students at trade schools who helped her rehab the house. So I feel like it really is a matter of how you access your resources, and how you think of your resources. Resources are not just cash. Knowing people who know how to do things. So yeah, you can do it as inexpensively as that, but realistically, for those people who are, who don't have those sort of additional resources, it can be a very expensive undertaking. It can be very expensive. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
And so is the Land Bank Authority, is that an organization that will live on forever as a permanent fixture of Detroit, or at some point will it just shut down when you're?
So the reality, Alan, is that you hear that rhetoric quite frequently, that people want to close the land bank, and that's very short-sighted thinking. Quite frankly, as we see across the country, there are a number of cities that are trying to get a land bank because of the unique powers and unique powers and the abilities that a land bank offers. And so the land bank currently has about 72,000 parcels of land in its inventory. So it's a long time before we'll even get to the point of even talking about being, free of our inventory. But we also have to remember that. Oh, I'm sorry.
We're gonna take
All
a
right,
break.
we're gonna take.
We're gonna
hang in there. going to take a break. We're going to play a couple of commercials, Joe. So it's
Homeownership opportunities are rising in the city of Detroit, and there's a house out there that's right for you and your family. You don't even have to worry about credit or getting a loan. You can win a house for as little as $1,000 and pay for the renovation cost as you go. It all starts at buildingdetroit.org and the Detroit Land Bank Authority. Our auction and Own It Now programs offer a variety of houses in neighborhoods all over the city of Detroit. These homes are in desperate need of repair and new ownership. You can begin by going to our interactive map and detailed property listings to find the right fit for you. It won't be easy, and renovation costs are not cheap, but our compliance team is there every step of the way. We will help you track your progress and connect you with local discounts to save you more money. We have already sold more than 15,000 homes in the city of Detroit, and our inventory is shrinking fast, so you don't want to miss out on this wonderful opportunity. Start your home buying journey today by visiting buildingdetroit.org.
Come out at 11?
Yeah.
All right.
Go ahead.
We're back.
Oh,
Tammy, go ahead.
I was just finishing up, and so we have 72,000 pieces of land in our parcels of land in our inventory, and so it'll be a long time before we'll be parcel free. But I would also remind everybody that every year there are properties that go through the foreclosure process. The properties that are not bought at auction typically end up in our inventory. We also we have a program at the Land Bank called the Nuisance Abatement Program, where we hold private property owners responsible for the care and condition of their property, and those individuals who refuse to take care of their property, the land bank takes title to it, and so we get additional properties that way. People also who cannot take care of their property oftentimes will say, can you please take it off my hand, because they don't want to be saddled with the blight tickets or the demo costs that are associated with, removing the blight from the neighborhood. So the cycle, while we anticipate that we will, we'll come to a day very soon where we will not have, will be a structure, an almost structureless land bank. It'll be a long time before we get rid of our 62,000 pieces of vacant land.
So how we get in touch with the land bank, Tammy?
So there are many, many ways to access the land bank. The easiest and most convenient way is to go on our website, buildingdetroit.org. All the information that you want to know about land bank programming is on the website. If individuals have questions, they can go to, they can send email a question at inquire@detroitlandbank.org. We have individuals who man that email, and somebody will respond to you. And then finally, the old-fashioned way, you can always reach us by telephone. Our phone number is 313. Hold on, let me make sure. I want to make sure I tell it to you right.
Well, we lost you, Tammy.
You did? Uh-oh. Hold on.
Yeah.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Anyway,
Oh, 313-974.
You know what? We're gonna next week we're gonna bring you back on.
Yeah.
Next week we're gonna bring you back on next week, and we'll continue the conversation.
A little quieter.
Because then we'll be back back in the studio.
All righty. Well, thanks so much,
Maybe I'll
Tammy.
come and join.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Tammy. Tammy Daniels.
Absolutely. Everybody have a wonderful Saturday. Enjoy the day.
Do the same.
All right.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Well, we tried to.
Yeah, it's a little loud here. We apologize.
We can apologize, but I think the problem is we've done live remotes before.
Right.
Next time we do a live remote, we need to have our headphones on. That way, people won't get the noise like that.
Well, I don't know about. We'll be able to hear better, but the noise, we have to figure out a different way, because you can't. It's challenging to say, but we. Anyways,
is Neeblen in?
Well, he's not here yet.
Okay, I'll tell you what we do.
You wanted to.
We're gonna wrap it up. We'll get Neeblen. We'll get him back on.
All right. We'll have Steve Neeblen on. Maybe we'll have him on next week.
Right.
And I want to thank all our guests, Scott Burnstein,
Tammy Daniels.
Tammy Daniels, who's always great. And
your final thoughts?
My final thoughts are: it's great to be. It's finally sunny out here. We can see out the window at Michigan and Trumbull, one of the legendary corners in Detroit. Here, it's a great time to be out there.
And we're gonna get it.
The Tigers. I want to say the Tigers are miraculous. I think they won last night against St. Louis. They swept the Mets with Verlander and Scherzer.
They have been.
Yeah, but I think hopefully we'll have some fun. Here's Steve Niebling is coming in. You want to say hello to him for a few minutes?
We can. Go ahead.
All right, we're not seeing a photo. We don't have a video. All right. We'll wrap it up.
With the final thoughts.
Final thoughts. Karen, to answer your question, we're at McShane's on the corner of Michigan and Trumbull. Final thoughts. This weekend people are celebrating the Kentucky Derby. We had things going on in the city of Detroit last night and today. There's a big shindig. People are going to have their hats on and dressed up. So enjoy. I'd like to say thank you to Henry Madness, who came here today. He's going to be helping with the show. I also want to thank Joseph for coming down, for helping us with the show. And I want to thank our fans of the show for coming in to McShane's to listen to the show.
Well, we're going to get it right. Listen, live location. The noise just came at us. But anyway, be back next week.
One way or another, somewhere, wherever.
Yeah.
So, all right, everybody. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week. We'll have more great guests. All right. I guess we're all wrapping it up.